this is an exciting time in aviation, but aviation is our safest mode of transport. It's orders of magnitude safer to fly than it is to drive today. To put that in context, when in the US, we have about 40,000 fatalities every year on the highways. And we have, when there's an accident on a commercial airline, it's a congressional inquiry. We went for more than a decade without having a fatality on a Part 121 airline in the US. And to put that in context, we fly about half as many miles as we drive. So it's on the same order of magnitude, and yet we're losing 40,000 people a year on the ground, and frequently nobody in the air. So aviation, it didn't used to be that way. Back when airplanes first were invented, they were relatively dangerous. But the aviation industry, because you're handing over control, and with a car, you're driving yourself. But when you're flying, you're handing your control to the company that runs the airline, to the pilots that are flying the airplane. And so as we move to this age of autonomous transportation, we're doing that in the context of societal norms around safety, whether that's the safety of ground vehicles or the safety of aircraft. And so as we're working to bring autonomous aircraft online, we need to be doing that in the context of the safety paradigm that is present for aviation, which is an extraordinarily high bar. And so it's a step-by-step approach. Equally, when we're building, we will be launching our air taxi service here in Dubai later this year, and we're doing that as a piloted aircraft. That's a step-by-step approach. So we're starting with piloted, and then we'll move to progressive levels of autonomy over time. I think the incredible opportunity that the UAE has is that there is not a lot of general aviation in the UAE airspace. There's commercial aircraft, and then there will be our air taxi service, and there's a few general aviation aircraft, but it's not as dense as general aviation is in the US. And that provides the UAE with an incredible opportunity to be an early adopter and an early sandbox for autonomous aircraft. And we think that that's really a phenomenal opportunity. And then finally, to put a point on your question, you have the companies that are operating the aircraft. You have and then you because we're operating an air taxi service, and this is in contrast as Brian from Xpeng in the previous session talked about, they're launching their aircraft as a personal ownership aircraft. And when you have something that's personal ownership, there's a different threshold, there's a different level of responsibility because you're not handing over control. And so I think that that's an interesting dimension as we move into this autonomous age, and kind of the societal safety expectations that come with those sorts of things.
Daniil, now we land back to driving, yes?
I knew quite a lot about the aviation for the recent 2 days. We joined yesterday's roundtable, which almost every single minute was spent to aviation, so I quite experienced that as well. And what I yesterday heard, that for example right now when you came to the cabin of the simple airplane, most of the time it's autonomous. And no one cares about that, because in most crucial part of the system there are humans inside. And I think that on the high level it's the same idea here. So we need to implement humans in the most crucial part of the technology, in the most crucial part of the process, to be sure that it's safe enough. Because it's much more about the emotion, how we feel about that, than about the situation. So for example, Waymo on the streets already, 7 times more safer than a human, but we still worry about when something happens with Waymo, like something super bad happen, and it's bad in the end, but it's already 7 times safer than the humans. And humans still, they react to emotions, to the mood, to their morning routine. Probably they slept less than in an average day, and today he's much less safer on the street. That's why we need to push it, and we shouldn't wait until the technology would be untouchable, unbreakable, unbelievable. So all these, important words, and start to implement it step by step in some sandboxes, in some areas, in some routes, in some cities. Then, as for example, the guys are launching air taxi. It's unbelievable. So, of course, they wouldn't launch it everywhere. So, in one day, I hope all of us will be in the air, not on the streets, but it should be step by step. For example, our story, we work in 36 countries across the globe, is right here in logistics mostly. And for example, here in UAE, we start to deploy our delivery robots in only one district as a beginning. So we launch it together in partnership with Noon and RTA, looking how it's work from all the different angles, from the e-commerce player, from us as a robotics technology, from the RTA as a regulator, which, thank you to them, give us the opportunity to try. If it will be successful, we will start to scale to the next area, to the next area, to the next area. And in one day, we finally fulfill one of my dreams, that not humans will deliver stuff to humans, but the robots instead, and humans will find something which is much more fun in the end, because it's quite a sad story. If we came to the world when one half of humanity delivers something to another. So we need to go step by step. We need to implement human in the most crucial part of the process of the technology, but we need to push it every single day. Otherwise, we will just stuck in today's situation. And even today, a lot of autonomous technology already safer, and we can see it in ordinary airplanes that it's already work. It's autonomous mostly. So the human touch the role and you improve the flight route only when it's really important.
And what do you believe is the most effective approach to introduce new innovations safely?
I think that we're in a really exciting time right now because we're getting to see the way different countries around the world and different regulators around the world embrace these new technologies. And I think what you're seeing is happening in China is that the CAC, which is the aviation regulator there, is deploying sandboxes. So they create a limited framework in which both geographical and the types of operations that are allowed, and then they let companies operate in that limited sandbox, and then they expand the sandbox a little bit more. And to me, that is enabling a flourishing of technologies there. In the U.S., there's a different structure in terms of they classify risk based on the size of the aircraft. So if you have a one-seat aircraft and you're flying it yourself, that's and it is below a certain weight class, that's an ultralight. You don't need a pilot's license, and the FAA has zero regulation to it. You can just go out and fly it. You can't fly it over populated areas, but it's basically the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. Then the FAA has released a classification called Mosaic, which builds on the work that they developed for light sport aircraft. So in 2004, they released rules for light sport aircraft. So these are two-seat aircraft with a limited stall speed and a limited mass. And with that, it was a lower piloting burden, and as a result, it drove a massive flourishing. There were tons and tons of new light sport aircraft that were designed and that were built. And what 20 years taught the FAA was that they could let new ideas flourish, that they could, and one of the cool things was that those aircraft were dramatically less expensive than the ones that went through Part 23 certification. So it reduced the cost, it increased the access, and what the FAA found was that it didn't materially reduce the safety. And so they're like, this is great, we can let innovation happen with, and so now they've released Mosaic this last year, and Mosaic takes that same mindset of we can have relatively small aircraft. So in this case, they've expanded it to up to 4 seats, and they've enabled the aircraft to have a little more speed and a little more performance. And so they're expanding the envelope in that dimension where the aircraft can have more capabilities. But again, in the US, once you have an aircraft, you can fly it anywhere in the US. So you see the Chinese system, which is like geographically and capability, limiting the capabilities and geographic and the altitude you can fly and the areas that you can fly in. The US is, once you're allowed to fly, you can fly pretty much anywhere. In some cases, you can't fly over populated areas, as I talked about with ultralights. But it's different approaches. And it's going to be really interesting to watch the way those different approaches evolve. Here in the UAE, the regulator has been incredibly forward-leaning. You have the top leaders in this country, the ruler of Dubai, the leaders in Abu Dhabi, who've said air taxis are electric aircraft, and some people like to call them flying cars, are something that is part of the future that we want to create, and we're going to lean forward into this. And the GCA has been incredible at working hand in hand, understanding the technology at a really deep level, and we think there's immense potential for air taxis to create an incredible amount of benefit here, but we have to do it in a very safe and methodical way, and step by step. And so I think the UAE is leveraging the really important lessons from the way China's doing it, really important lessons from the way the US is doing it, and blending it in a really constructive way.
Daniil?
Yeah, I spent half of my life working as a marketing guy. So first half of my career is I spent in the marketing before I become a general manager and start to do all the stuff. And that's why I'm looking on this situation in a slightly marketing way, to be honest. So yeah, I completely agree about step by step, as I mentioned. So in the RTA and ITC doing extremely well here, even pushing us. So it's quite interesting when I didn't come and ask for new regions, but they push me in Abu Dhabi and Dubai as well. It's really, really awesome. But what I think, for example, on the robot example, if I choose it for my part of the cake, they're this size. And when we just deploy it anywhere, the first 5, 10, 50 of them, everyone likes them. Because it's something new, it's a technologic, it's some a little bit sci-fi. So every single one loves them, especially kids. Kids start to write on them and try to destroy them, as always kids doing. But if you think about it, and if it's not a miracle anymore, so if it's not the first 5 to 10, if it's thousands on the street, it sounds slightly different. So you don't like them anymore. They're everywhere. It's not a miracle. It's not a sci-fi. It's just ordinary days for you, and you start to hate them. And it's quite easy to hate the machine. It's quite easy to hate the technology, but it's quite difficult to hate something which owns a soul in your brain. That's why, for example, on front of the robot, we add lights which almost look like an eyes. In terms of technology, it's useless. We don't need them. We add a voice inside it, so the robot can say hi or something like that. We don't need that for the basic technology. But we start to implement such stories to add a soul inside them. Because in other case, if, for example, your robot will just deliver, the goods for you, just piece of metal and plastic, it's impossible to love it. But if the robot will have a name, when you shout the name of exactly robot which works in your district and he starts to shake itself like a dog, it's quite easy to love it. And my approach also that we shouldn't be focused only on the technology. It's top one priority. We shouldn't focus only on the regulations, the second priority, safety and all the stuff. But we also shouldn't forget about the emotion piece of that. We should add emotion aspect, because for the first experiment, for the first pilot, first sandbox, I will enjoy flying taxi, enjoy robots, enjoy autonomous cars, enjoy everything because it's a miracle. But when it's everywhere, I start to hate it with every single part of technology. And if we failed as a part of this community with adding soul inside the stuff which we're creating, we will get the new problems, and humanity start to be against it, and we will get the new layer of problems which I personally don't know how to solve from this moment of time. That's why I'm trying to look on that and implement this approach in the technology which we're developing as well.
One question that always comes to my mind, like in case of an accident, God forbid, who is held accountable? Who is responsible? The technician, the engineer, the regulator? Who's responsible?
So I think in our business, we are unique in the aviation industry because we are the manufacturer, we are the operator, we train the pilots and we pay the pilots, we train the maintenance technicians and we pay the maintenance technicians. We own the entire safety equation. There's no one to point the finger at. We own safety from top to bottom, from beginning to end.
No matter the accident.
It's there. We own every element of the safety, and I don't know that there's any other aviation operation today where that can be said. And so that's the reason as I set out to build this company. I've been building this for 16 years. It's my childhood dream. Safety is at the core of every decision we make. And to be clear, Part 121 aircraft, this is the big planes you get on when you go to the airport. It's the aviation that most people know today, is extraordinarily safe. But smaller aircraft don't have that same level of safety. It's still safer than driving. When you get on a 135 in the US, a 135 operation, this is the kinds of operations that govern smaller aircraft. They're still about 10 times safer per passenger mile than driving on the road, but they're not 10,000 times safer like a large commercial aircraft. And one of the challenges that sits before us is that because we own every aspect of safety, and as you said, God forbid that we ever have an accident, we need to ensure that we maintain the public trust, that we ensure that we handle that incident and understand it in every dimension of it.
Daniil, briefly, because our time is almost up.
Yeah. Look, I think the same. In the beginning, definitely it's your job. You're responsible for everything. Just no other option at all. But with scaling, it will become like with the airplanes. We all research all the accidents and we find who was wrong. The crew, the airplanes, the engineers, the airport, whoever. Here will be the same. So we will check all the process. We will find where the mistake was, because we don't need only to find who is wrong, but we need to fix it for the future.
How we make it right.
Yes. Yeah, so we need to improve on the daily basis, otherwise it wouldn't work. But in the beginning, humanity wouldn't accept anything that the owner of this technology is responsible for all the stuff. So that's why we just need to scale it step by step.
So Daniil, JoeBen, thank you very much for this session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.